Hey, in this video we'll be talking about the basic operators that you'll see in C#. So I have a Hello World program as usual, and I'm going to try out some of these operators. We've seen one of them. Let's make a variable int number, and we've seen that we can use a single equals sign to assign a value, let's say 10. And we can make another one, let's just call it number 2, and we'll give that a different value, but I'll do this on a separate line just to demonstrate. 3. Alright, so we have two variables, number and number 2, and they're assigned their values using the equals sign. The equals sign, the assignment operator, is used for all sorts of variables. So if I had a string, my string, I can put something in there like, hey, this number is, and I could print that out if I wanted to. So there are other operators, like math operators, that let us manipulate these numbers, values that are integers or floating point values. So I'm going to demonstrate a couple of those. Console.writeLine. Let's see what happens when we do number plus 3. That seems kind of obvious, right? So we should evaluate number first, and we get 10. 10 plus 3 should be 13, and it prints out 13. If you try it out, that's what it does. So we could replace that with this number 2 variable, right? Number 2. So you should expect that this is going to print out 13. And now there's another operator that's very similar to addition, because it uses the same symbol. Console.writeLine my string plus number. Alright, so what do you expect from this one? We have a string and we're adding a number onto the end of the string. So this isn't really adding, it's not really the addition operator, this is the string concatenation operator. It's a fancy way of saying put the strings together. My string is a string that says, hey, this number is, and number needs to be converted into a string for it to actually work with my string. And so the integer type actually has a built-in way of converting itself into a string. So this works just fine. You could also be explicit and say number dot toString, and that will actually give you the string representation of that number. So this will explicitly write, hey, this number is 10. If you had something like this, might get a little confusing about which operator is what. So it's best to be very clear. If you're trying to add these together, you can group them using parentheses. Parentheses make it possible to group parts of expressions, and so number plus number 2 will happen first and evaluate to 13, and then it'll be concatenated onto the end of that string and printed out. So we have other math operators too. Console.writeLine, and we've got subtraction, so you can do 10 minus 3, that's great. We also have multiplication, 10 times 3, and we have division. So multiplication uses the asterisk that's above your, it's on the same key as your 8 on the keyboard, and / is used for division. So you should have some idea of what to expect when you go through each of these commands, what it's going to print out. What do you think this last one's going to print out? 10 divided by 3. You know the answer, right? Let's try it out. Alright, so we got hello world, right line, and we added them together, so we got 13. Then we got this concatenation. Hey, this number is 13. We got 7, 30, and then 3. Well, that might be a little surprising. 10 divided by 3, is that really 3? Well, when you're dealing with integers, and the only storage you have is to store it as another integer, then you have to truncate it. You can't have a decimal value. So 10 divided by 3, when you're using integer division, really is 3. 3 fits into 10 3 times only. So if you wanted to have decimal points, you would have to make it clear that this is supposed to be a floating point division. So you could do that by making either of these sides a floating point value or a double value. So if I run this, either one of those, we'll end up with a whole bunch of 3s as it tries to go as far as it can in the calculation using the storage that it has. Alright, so we can do those kind of calculations, and if either one of these was stored in a floating point variable, then you could also, it would also automatically use floating point division. Right, so we have some other operators that are very similar, more of a shorthand for some of these math things, because we end up doing this a lot. Number equals number plus 5. So if we were to look at this statement, number is on the left-hand side of the assignment operator. So this number variable is going to change. But what's it going to change to? You have to evaluate the right-hand side first. Number plus 5 is going to be 10 plus 5, so that's 15, and that's going to get stored in number. So we should end up with number storing the value 15. But there's a simpler way to write this, because it might be annoying or redundant to be typing number so much, and this can sometimes make it more readable using a compound assignment operator, plus equals. So plus equals adds the number 5 into this variable and stores it back in there. So this will add 5 to number, and number will change. We also have the opposite, minus equals. There's times equals and divided by equals as well. So you can use all of those to make your code a little cleaner and more readable, depending on the application. And then we have one last operator that I've already kind of used a bunch of times. So this dot operator in everywhere, I was using it on the integers to turn them into a string as well. And so the dot operator is a member access operator. And if you're working with classes, you would use a dot operator to access the members of the class if you store data or use functions from a class. And then other things, other objects like console, use a dot to access the functionality that's stored in that that object. And like I did before, dot toString, you can access the functionality of different types that way as well. Okay, so those are really the basic operators. Those are the ones that you'll get the most use out of and will be a part of your programs. So you should get used to using them and practice solving problems using a variety of operators so that you know what you're doing. I'll see you next time.